Picture this. A midnight Caribbean breeze, sails billowing, the eerie black flag rising. A skull and crossbones daring you to surrender or fight. Beneath this banner, piracy's most flamboyant legend ruled. A man with wild dreams, bold women by his side, and clothes as loud as the cannon fire. A man history knows as Calico Jack. Tonight, untangle the web of myth and fact, and peer into the shadows that shaped one of piracy's most notorious souls. Welcome back to Shadows of Scriptures, where history's untold tales get a new voice. If you love gripping stories, legendary criminals, and discoveries that blur the lines between legend and truth, subscribe now and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new journey into the shadows. John Rackham's story begins in the bustling port city of Bristol, England, where he was born on December 26, 1682. Bristol, during this era, was one of the most important maritime centers in England, thriving with trade routes linking Europe, Africa, and the Americas. It was a place where tales of the sea were as common as the salt in the air, a fitting cradle for a future pirate legend. Rackham's early childhood remains largely a mystery. There are no detailed records about his family's social status or his upbringing. However, Bristol's environment likely exposed him from a young age to shipbuilding, merchants, sailors, and stories of adventure on the high seas. This seafaring culture would have lent a strong allure to any imaginative youth craving more than the confines of city life. As a teenager, Rackham set his sights beyond England's shores. Records indicate he crossed the Atlantic early, settling initially in Jamaica, where the lure of the New World's opportunities awaited. Jamaica in the early 1700s was a fledgling English colony, teeming with merchants, privateers, sailors, and, increasingly, pirates. Young men like Rackham often sought their fortunes aboard merchant ships, or sometimes in the less lawful lives of privateers and pirates. His first known role in maritime life was as a crewman, a common entry point for most seafarers. He quickly demonstrated an aptitude for sailing and navigation, eventually earning promotion to helmsman, the critical position responsible for steering the ship by following the captain's orders. This role required steady nerves and precise skill, especially during storms or naval encounters. His rise through the ranks was steady, but not meteoric. Rackham was respected for competence rather than nobility or luck. The defining early chapter of his seafaring career was his service under pirate Captain Charles Vane. Rackham served as Vane's quartermaster aboard the sloop Ranger out of New Providence, a pirate haven in the Bahamas. The quartermaster was a vital role. Elected by the crew, he represented their interests, maintained discipline, divided loot, and sometimes acted as a second-in-command. Balancing crew tensions and managing the demands of piracy required political skill as much as courage. Rackham's ambition and leadership were put to the test during a critical moment when Vane refused to engage a pursuing French warship. In pirate society, bravery and attacking opportunity mattered more than retreat or caution. Many pirates perceived Vane's refusal as cowardice. Rackham advocated for striking and eventually led a mutiny that deposed Vane. The crew elected Rackham captain in Vane's place, marking a dramatic transition from trusted helmsman and quartermaster to the highest rank on board. This episode underscored Rackham's natural leadership and willingness to challenge authority for what the crew believed was the correct course. His ability to unite discontented pirates and command respect positioned him for further notoriety. Unlike many of his contemporaries famous for ruthless violence or immense wealth, Rackham's legend grew largely from his flamboyant style and democratic crew relations. He earned the nickname Calico Jack because of his penchant for wearing brightly colored calico fabric, unusual among pirates who favored functional dark clothing. This bright, bold attire became a signature of his, symbolizing rebellion and audacity in a world ruled by fear and violence. Thus, the young helmsman from Bristol transformed into a pirate captain whose story, though brief, would inspire tales of courage, charisma, and defiance, echoing through the golden age of piracy and beyond. Under Rackham's command, the pirate ship sailed the Caribbean, employing cunning over brute force. He favored swift attacks on smaller, vulnerable vessels rather than costly battles with heavily armed warships. This pragmatism allowed him to capture enough prize ships and goods to sustain the pirate lifestyle and maintain his crew's loyalty without needless loss. Despite this careful approach, Rackham's reputation didn't ignite like that of other infamous pirates such as Blackbeard or Bartholomew Roberts. Contemporary accounts and trial records show that many saw him as somewhat of a mediocre pirate captain, not especially innovative or brutal, but willing to take risks and backed by a loyal crew, including two of piracy's most infamous women, and Bonny and Mary Red. Rackham's journey from quartermaster to Captain Calico Jack marks the transformation of a competent sailor into a symbol of pirate defiance and style. He demonstrated that leadership in piracy wasn't only about violence, but also about personality, consensus, and the allure of rebellion, all wrapped in brightly colored calico. This balance between daring and diplomacy made his brief but vivid tenure unforgettable in pirate lore. While Calico Jack's flamboyance and leadership defined his reign, the true heartbeat of his crew lay in two extraordinary women who defied the harshest superstitions of the sea and rewrote the rules of piracy, and Bonny and Mary Red. In the rigid, male-dominated world of piracy, women were widely considered bad luck, cargo that invited storms, discord, and doom. Commanders who dared bring women aboard risked not just mutiny, but also scorn from other pirates who believed a lady's presence would provoke divine punishment or stir trouble with the crew. To navigate this hostile maritime prejudice, both Anne and Mary initially disguised themselves as men, concealing their identities beneath loose clothes and masculine comportment. Their exceptional skill in combat and seamanship, combined with fierce loyalty and courage, earned them positions in Rackham's crew, trusted as any man once their secret was revealed. Rather than retreating into shadows, the two women embraced their pirate life unapologetically, earning fear and respect in equal measure. And, born to a lawyer, was fiery and tempestuous, a match for even the roughest pirates. She met Rackham in Nassau, the chaotic heart of Caribbean piracy, and soon became his companion and trusted lieutenant. Mary Reed's origins were equally dramatic. Reportedly raised as a boy to conceal her gender, and possessing a combative spirit that could rival any seaman's. Jack Rackham, known for his indulgent nature, was nevertheless not immune to jealousy, and Mary formed a bond marked by fierce camaraderie and whispered speculations beyond mere friendship. Some historians and literary tales speculate that Anne and Mary's relationship may have translated into a romantic, even lesbian, partnership, a defiant alliance on and off the ship that challenged gender norms and societal expectations of the early 18th century. This closeness reportedly stirred Rackham's jealousy at times, adding complexity to the dynamics aboard. Here was a captain who loved flamboyance and loyalty, but struggled with the intimacy of his two fierce female crewmates who, in many ways, were the equals or even superiors of their male counterparts, both in courage and influence. The presence of these women shattered the typical narrative of piracy as an exclusively male bastion. They fought side by side with the men in battles, wielding cutlasses and pistols, and earning a fearsome reputation that still echoes in pirate folklore. Their story also humanizes Calico Jack, revealing a man navigating the contradictions of leadership, jealousy, and respect amid a crew bound by the lawlessness and camaraderie of the pirate life. And Bonny and Mary Reed's roles on board were more than just curiosity or scandal. They embodied the defiance of convention that defined Jack Rackham's short but memorable piracy career. Together, these three figures shaped a chapter of pirate history that upended the superstitions of bad luck women aboard ships and carved a narrative of rebellion, that endures through the ages. With Calico Jack firmly in command and his fearsome crew growing sharper by the day, the image of piracy crystallized around a single, powerful symbol, the Jolly Roger. The black flag, bearing a skull and crossed swords, became more than a banner. It was the unspoken language of terror on the turbulent Caribbean seas. Before the rise of the Jolly Roger, pirate ships often sailed under false flags, sometimes the colors of their prey, to approach unsuspecting targets without alarm. The moment of truth came only when they revealed their true colors, a chilling black flag that signaled no quarter would be given to resistance. For Calico Jack, raising this flag was a declaration of defiance against the established order of colonial powers and their naval supremacy. Rackham's particular version of the Jolly Roger featured a skull above two cross swords, diverging slightly from the more familiar skull and crossbones. This personalized variation reinforced his reputation, bold, distinct, and unyielding. The flag became synonymous with Rackham's name, and the sight of it alone was enough to send merchant ships in a panic or prompt instant surrender. In pirate lore, the Jolly Roger also carried layered symbolism. It was not merely a flag of plunder and violence. It was a banner of freedom for men and women who rejected the harsh rules imposed by kings and merchants. It declared a world where the ordinary laws were cast aside and replaced by pirate codes of conduct, camaraderie, and survival. However, flying the Jolly Roger was not without risks. It marked the ship as an outlaw and invited fierce retaliation from naval forces. Pirates often used the tactic of sailing under other flags and only hoisted their true colors close to their victims, to maximize fear and minimize the chance of early detection. This calculated use of the flag demonstrated a blend of psychological warfare and naval savvy. For Calico Jack, the Jolly Roger was a necessary instrument in his survival strategy. His crew, including the indomitable and Bonny and Mary Red, operated with a blend of daring and caution. Their targets were often small merchant ships and fishing vessels, ships that could be overwhelmed quickly and without drawing the attention of bigger warships. The flag served as both a shield and a weapon, its visual menace delivering much of the battle before a shot was fired. Ultimately, the Jolly Roger came to symbolize an era, the golden age of piracy, and the spirit of those like Rackham who lived on the edges of society, thriving in the gaps between empires. It remains a timeless icon of rebellion, risk, and the perilous pursuit of freedom. As Calico Jack and his crew sailed under the infamous Jolly Roger, the Caribbean became their hunting ground. Their raids were focused, strategic, and often surprisingly selective. Unlike some of the more brutal pirates of the era, Rackham's crew targeted primarily smaller merchant vessels and fishing boats, ships that could be quickly overpowered without risking a bloody, protracted fight. These attacks disrupted trade routes that were vital to the colonial economies and earned them notoriety among merchants and naval forces alike. In 1718, the British Crown, desperate to stem the tide of piracy spreading across its Caribbean colonies, issued a royal pardon offering amnesty to any pirate who surrendered before a specified deadline. The so-called King's Pardon was a calculated effort to lure pirates back to lawful society by forgiving past crimes. Calico Jack, like many others, initially accepted this offer. He surrendered and agreed to renounce piracy, ostensibly seeking a peaceful life ashore. But Rackham's story was never one of simple compliance. His love and partnership with and Bonny tied him to the pirate life more than any royal decree could sever. The fierce loyalty and passion he shared with and prevented him from truly abandoning the call of the sea and freedom. Within months, he broke the terms of the pardon and returned to piracy, sailing once again beneath the black flag. This betrayal of the pardon was not merely a rejection of the Crown's mercy. It was a declaration that the camaraderie, adventure, and rebellion embodied by and in the pirate life were worth the risk of death. For Rackham, and was more than a companion, she was a symbol of defiance and shared destiny. Their return to piracy was marked by a renewed boldness, but also increased danger. The British authorities, sharpening their efforts, intensified manhunts for Rackham and his crew. The notoriety of his alliance with Anne and Mary Red further painted their trio as formidable opponents who embodied the unruly spirit the Crown sought to extinguish. If exploring the brutal realities of historical crime, pirate violence, and the harsh consequences of a life outside the law interests you, make sure to subscribe to Shadows of Scriptures. Stay informed with deep dives into some of history's darkest acts. Now, let's continue. Through a series of raids and escapes, Rackham and his crew kept the Caribbean on edge, sometimes romanticized, often feared, living on borrowed time as colonial powers tightened their grip. Yet, their story of breaking free from royal pardon highlights a pirate's ultimate allegiance, not to crown or country, but to the sea, freedom, and those they loved. Despite their daring raids and fleeting successes, Rackham's pirate career was approaching its grim end. In October 1720, anchored near Jamaica, Calico Jack ship was unexpectedly attacked by a British naval force led by Jonathan Barnett, a former privateer tasked with hunting down pirates. With much of the crew below deck, suffering from drunkenness or exhaustion, the pirates were quickly overwhelmed and captured. Calico Jack and Bonny, Mary Red, and others were taken to Spanish Town to face trial for piracy, a crime punishable by death. And Bonny's spirit, fiery to the last, was on vivid display during the trial and capture. According to some accounts, when the men of the crew refused to fight during the raid, displaying cowardice and challenged them fiercely, proclaiming, "If you had fought like a man, you wouldn't have to die like a dog." This biting rebuke illustrated not only her courage, but also her scorn for weakness, a boldness that surpassed many of the male pirates around her. It was a stark reminder that her presence was no mere curiosity. She was a fierce combatant known to stand her ground with pistols and cutlass alike. The trial was swift and merciless. Rackham was convicted and sentenced to hang, and Bonny and Mary Red avoided immediate execution by claiming pregnancy, a legal plea to delay sentencing. While Mary Red died in prison of fever, and's fate thereafter fades into obscurity. Some believe she was released or escaped, vanishing into history. Jack's last hours were spent glaring at the gallows, a capo of the pirate world brought low. Ann's words echoed as a testament to a life lived violently and defiantly, a refusal to bow even in the face of death. This chapter of Calico Jack's story is a brutal reminder of the harsh realities behind piracy. Not glamorous adventure, but desperate survival and the ever-present specter of execution. The words of and Bonny endure as one of history's sharpest critiques of cowardice and a symbol of unyielding pirate grit. Thank you for joining this deep dive into the grim world of Calico Jack and his crew, a story of ruthless ambition, betrayal, and brutal consequences on the lawless seas. If you found this detailed account of piracy's dark realities illuminating, make sure to subscribe to Shadows of Scriptures for more unflinching explorations into history's most notorious crimes and criminals. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on Calico Jack's choices and the fierce loyalty between him and Bonny. Share this video to spread the truth behind legends and expose the harsh truths that shaped our world. Remember, history's darkest tales hold the clearest lessons. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and until next time, keep seeking the shadows where stories live.